Hello, everyone. My name is Ross Levanto. I'm a Senior Vice President at Highwire PR. And today we're talking about what the impact of the recent coronavirus outbreak has had on the roles of key industry media. We're pleased to be joined today by Jonah Comstcok. He's the Director of Content Operations at HIMSS Media, most notably with the title Moby Health News, but also with Healthcare IT News and Healthcare Finance News. And Jonah, really pleased to have you join us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And Jonah, I wonder if you could just talk to us. I mean, the world has changed dramatically over the last couple of months, certainly last few months anyway, with the situation we're all kind of driving through. And first off, want to make sure you're healthy and safe, and everyone you know is healthy and safe. Certainly priorities have been put in perspective with this whole ordeal. But wanted to delve a little bit into talking about how this has changed your role, and what PR people in particular can learn from how your role has changed and how we can better serve you. So how has your role changed over the last 6 weeks or so?
So there's a couple things going on at HIMSS that maybe are a little different than some things you see elsewhere. One is that our global conference, our big annual conference that our entire company is geared around, had to be canceled because of coronavirus about a week before it was supposed to start. So and in order to kind of respond to that in a way that was kind of productive and sort of like make lemonade and silver lining, we decided to ramp up something we'd already been planning to launch, which was our digital events business. And that ended up falling in the lap of media. So the big thing that happened on day one is I had to sort of split my time between doing everything I could to sort of support that team launching that new thing. I have that kind of on the one hand. On the other hand, I have a team of 6 journalists who are just trying to cover this story, which is such a huge story for healthcare. So we're being impacted by it ourselves, but we're also, it's the biggest public health story of our lifetimes, certainly. And so, they've all been, they're all working their butts off just trying to tell the story and get every angle and give our readers all the information they want to have. And everyone's been working overtime to do that. And then we come in and ask them, hey, support this digital effort. We're asking you to do what you would do at the conference, because, at the conference, it's like a week of craziness where we work really hard to cover all the sessions. We're saying do that now at the same time as an extra busy time in your regular job. So it's been a lot to balance those priorities and balance sort of what our priorities are as journalists and what the priorities coming from maybe the people who are in charge of us that might have more to do with sort of supporting the digital events launch and the digital transformation of our own company.
Now, talk to me a little bit about the coverage itself. I mean, obviously, you cover healthcare innovation, which is top of mind for everyone today, given what we're coping with. Is all of your coverage pretty much focused on coronavirus? Has that been kind of the mainstay of your articles over recent weeks?
What we've kind of said is that it turns out even if it's not about coronavirus, it's about coronavirus. So we certainly, so there's a couple of things happening, right? One is that we, both at Moby Health News and Healthcare IT News especially, we see our role as telling the story of healthcare and technology and how it's changing, how it's being adopted, what are the the pros and cons, how do you as a technology professional in the healthcare world adjust to the trends that are happening. Well, COVID-19 is a huge health tech story because we've been sitting here covering the telehealth for 10, 15 years, and it's always been this story of when will it take off, when will it hit the mainstream. It works, the technology's here, it's just not seeing the adoption. Physicians are too risk averse and they have too many other things going on. So suddenly we have this perfect storm of this crisis that has basically forced the issue, and this I think everyone I know in this industry is convinced that we're going to look back on this as the moment in history when telehealth became the kind of primary, if not the primary way that we do healthcare, a sort of significant part of the ecosystem. But for that to happen not slowly, but overnight, that includes so many little stories about how hospitals manage to adjust their infrastructure and their ecosystem to go. There was someone I interviewed last week who was like, here's all the telehealth visits we did in 2019, and it was like 67. And here's all the telehealth visits we did last month, and it was like 10,000. Like these,
wow.
the scales. I mean, I may be wrong about that exact thing. Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me. But
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing where people are just, it's exploding out of necessity. And so it's been. So one thing is, telling that story, and a lot of our coverage is around that. The other thing is on the Moby side. Also, I think we think that the contact tracing story and the testing story are both sort of digital health stories, consumerization of health stories. They might be a little outside what we normally would consider our beat, but because they're such an important part of this national story that we've sort of, and because our readers are so interested in, we've sort of brought them into the fold. But to answer your question, are we covering non-COVID stories? With the HIMSS Digital, a lot of these sessions were scheduled long before this became a thing, and we're going and attending the digital sessions and writing them up. But even those, every time someone records one of those digital sessions, they're talking about COVID-19, and they're talking about, if you're doing a session about HIPAA, you're talking about COVID-19 because there's a HIPAA waiver and everything's changed. If you're doing a session about interoperability, you're talking about this, and it's like it just affects every aspect of what we write about. So not every story we write is a COVID story, but it's pretty rare that we're writing a story where we don't at least mention COVID because it's just such a, and I mean, if you're writing about healthcare business and you're writing about, like a healthcare administration or finance, all of that's being affected so intensely by the pandemic that you can't really get away from it.
Fair enough. What's your advice for PR people? I mean, what's the best way that you're finding that PR people can work with you to make sure you're getting access to the sources you need, the types of news that's of interest to your readership? What are some tactics that you think are good advice for PR pros?
It's hard. Our volume of pitches is always high, and it's become higher. The best pitches, I think, are the ones that do some of our, and I mean, I apologize if some of this is PR 101, but
sometimes we need reminders, so go ahead.
I mean, the thing about pitching is you have to tell me why I should care, and why I should write about the story. And I think during a crisis especially, not just why is this story and this technology important in this moment, and why is it an important part of telling the story of how the country is dealing with, or the world is dealing with, COVID-19, but also recognize that everyone is working on this problem now. Everyone is working on whatever aspect of this problem their technology or their company positions them to work on, which is wonderful, which is really cool, right? To have been writing about this diverse startup ecosystem and see now everyone turning their attention towards trying to solve this problem we're all dealing with. But what that means is that if you're pitching me a COVID-19 story, there are probably several other very similar companies pitching very similar stories. And if that's all it is, fine. We'll do a roundup, and those do well, and our people like that. But if you really want to stand out, you've got to tell me in the pitch, and keeping in mind that I'm getting a lot of pitches, so as succinctly and as close to the top as you can, what makes this different than everything else, At Moby especially, and I think at HITN too, we're looking for substance over hype too. So if you have proof that it works, if you have a study, if you have a white paper, if you have something published, that's going to make it stand out. If you have something from the FDA that says that they've checked it over, or something from CMS that says they're paying for it, that's going to make us sit up and take notice. So, and I mean, to some extent, you as the PR person don't have control over what the company has, but those are the kinds of things to emphasize. I think that it's really real, and also that it's really newsy.
Well, Jonah Comstcok, I really appreciate you joining me today and chatting through this. happy you're healthy, and I hope that continues to be the case. And look forward to chatting with you soon. So thanks for joining, and have a good rest of your day.
Great. Thank you, Russ. Pleasure.